13 is a bad number. 12, we had the Knicks. So this is SipTalk 12A. Today we're going to be talking about the Tenant Protection Act and good cause eviction. And we're going to be talking about pets in apartments and the coronavirus. And coronavirus tips, because it's trending. So today we're drinking some scotch and some wine. You guys need a refill?
Jamie might.
We had a busy morning.
We did.
Do you want to explain what we did this morning?
Sure. So we had the first ever real estate roundtable, which is a brand roundtable that we've done for the last 5 years across the state of New York that originated in Western New York and has been brought all over from Syracuse to Albany. And today was the first day we did Manhattan, and we had 65 people, I believe, register for that. And we did a panel discussion on what good cause eviction would do for every owner across the state of New York, as well as tenants, because one of the messages we want to make sure we get out is compassion for tenants and making sure tenants have choices in where they live, and that it can still be a contractual relationship between landlords and tenants.
Cool. So I'm just going to pass this off to you, Adam.
Before we get started, can I make a toast?
You sure can.
Happy
These
birthday,
for you.
Jamie.
Here, let me
And
go.
many more.
Hold on. That's for Vanda.
Happy birthday.
All right,
Happy
cheers.
birthday.
Happy birthday.
Oh,
All right,
thank you,
you're
guys.
quasi off camera, but all right, guys.
All right.
So let's. First thing I want to talk about is the coronavirus, because that's very popular right now. I actually want to get coronavirus. I think I'm very healthy. I think it'd be a really good example.
And a great podcast on what it's like to have the coronavirus.
I think that'd be great. But I think coronavirus, from my understanding, is just about as bad as the flu. Okay, except we don't have a cure, which we also don't have for the flu.
Right.
We have a vaccine.
Right.
I've never had a flu vaccine, ever. I think the majority of people have never had a flu vaccine. There's a lot more flu than there is coronavirus.
I got
I
Right.
probably had the flu. a couple of months ago.
Yeah. No, I did too. I had it in January.
You know that some people have had the coronavirus and they're totally fine now and
Yes.
didn't even know they had it.
Exactly.
Right.
I think it's
I've
super
heard that
hyped
too.
up.
I think the percentage of people that have the flu and get sick from the flu is way worse too than the
Absolutely.
coronavirus.
Yes.
And
More
it's
people-
targeting lesser population. So like kids aren't being necessarily targeted by corona. That flu will hurt this year more.
And more people have
intensely.
died from the flu
Correct.
in this country.
But think about how many
than the
people
corona.
fly during the holidays when flu is insane,
Right.
but are not flying now because of coronavirus. Given there's no cure for either.
Having just flown yesterday, I can attest that
Oh, so-
people are crazy on the airplane. I've never seen the entire airplane be bleached as their people are getting on, and that's the reaction people
What do
are
you mean
having.
bleach? You mean that literally?
Clorox bleach wipes down the entire aisle, windows, side, buckle. I mean,
This is nuts.
this is what was happening.
So I watched the movie. What was the movie I watched the other day?
Contagion.
Contagion. And Contagion is spreading very similar to the way coronavirus is, except Contagion, whatever this virus is, you die. Now, people die from the flu.
Sure.
But they don't
Absolutely.
die like they do in the movie
Right.
Contagion. Only the,
They look
everybody-
like they're
whoever-
dying like Chernobyl. It's-
whoever gets this
Right.
contagion disease or virus dies no matter what. Most people who are going to get coronavirus are not going to die.
Right.
Just
I don't
the
feel like we
old and the
had this
weak.
though with SARS. Like when, like a couple years ago, like I don't know, years ago when we had the SARS thing. I don't feel like people were as impulsive to react to it. Like we had somebody cancel on our travel plans today to attend
Today.
our brown table because of this, and I don't think that has happened before.
But bear in mind, because she has a child, a newborn child. So if you got the flu and
Right.
brought that back to the newborn child, that would be bad.
Sure.
I have sympathy there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
fair.
Okay.
Sure.
So I mean, I do have some sympathy, but I'm getting many emails, social media, every other post is about coronavirus, emails about how to prepare for coronavirus. So
I will also say a personal anecdote. I drive a motorcycle to work most days, and traffic has actually ticked up steadily over the past 2 weeks.
You think people
and
taking
there's
cars?
less and less people on the subway. So I'm obviously with deductive reasoning thinking
Well-
that more and more people are taking other means of transportation to avoid being in public areas.
I haven't heard this, but somebody was talking about the
Interesting.
messages on the subway over the PA. What are the messages?
Well, they're just kind of saying some precautions of like how to cough and like keep your hands to yourself, and like it's a bit more of like
Common sense?
like cautionary, like be a bit more sanitized about like how you are on the subway. Don't be like the person
But what
you know,
are the
eating an open meal.
Linda, you've
and-
heard these messages?
I heard them.
What do they say?
They're saying like wash your hands, like cover your mouth if you cough, like that box.
Okay. Well, cover your mouth without your hand. They're saying cover your mouth. Are they getting that specific?
Oh, they're saying like cough into your like elbow basically and stuff like that.
Really?
I had
Yeah.
people this morning that wouldn't shake my hand.
Yeah, we had
They
people
did the
doing
elbow thing,
elbows.
and I'm okay.
Elbow.
It's cool.
All right, like I'm a neat and clean person, but like come on, like that's.
Yeah.
It doesn't affect anyone under the age of 39 years old, like at all. Like like they have a 0.022% chance of getting at all like.
I like that you added 2 twice.
Yeah, probably.
Have you done
Actually makes it
anything?
higher than .02.
Okay, so it's 0.02, but you get the point that like it's not. The mortality rate is really affecting people that are already susceptible to other symptoms, like
Sure.
flu
They're already
influenza.
compromised. Yeah. The elderly, people that are sick. Have you done anything in your office to keep your employees safe from the coronavirus?
No.
We had a conversation back in December about working while we're sick. So.
Oh, we did a podcast
about
about working when you're sick. And I said, I'm just balls to the wall. If you're an independent contractor, you have to make your money, fuck everybody else. That's my thing on it. Now, if you're salary and you have sick time, take the time.
Sure.
But, you know,
But there is something to be said, though. My maintenance guys, if they're sick, I tell them not to come in, not to come by me, because then they get everybody else sick, and then they're all out. Today, they all left early because they didn't feel well.
and that would be the argument to what I just said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair and solid argument.
That happened to me.
Yeah, you had
My
you had a
office.
whole bunch of agents.
I got an agent. I got the flu. She pushed to come forward still because she was brand new. She wanted to show up for work still. She showed up for one day, got really sick, got the flu, and then my entire team, out of 12 people, got sick.
He also
I
had
got
an
the
agent
flu.
who spent the holidays in China, came back and worked for 3 days, went home sick one day, in the middle of the night sent him an email or a text and said, I have to go back to China for a family emergency. And this didn't hit us until like 3 weeks after. Holy shit, he came back from China deathly sick.
And then had to dip back home, and then like a week and a half, 2 weeks later, you just start hearing the news about this coronavirus that's happening in northern China. That's where he's from. We all start to panic.
So you could be sitting here with Corona right now.
Probably,
We don't know.
I mean, you know,
The incubation period is what, 2 days to 2 weeks?
something like that.
No, I
yeah.
heard you can have it for 2 weeks and not have symptoms and be contagious.
But 2 weeks, yeah,
2
exactly,
weeks,
is
correct.
the incubation period.
Right.
So, is this who released this notice?
So this is the BOMA, which is the builders group that exists across the state.
Have you seen this?
No.
Okay. But they're giving tips on how to protect yourself.
Right.
So I just want to kind of touch some of their
Sure.
high points here. Avoid close contact with
6 inches or something. What did they say this morning?
really?
Yeah.
Avoid close contact with individuals
Carry a ruler around.
showing signs of illness. Okay. Avoid touching your eyes, as I have an itch in my eye. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, mouth without first washing your hands. So wash
Okay.
and then touch away. Wash your hands often with soap and water for at least 20 seconds.
ABC's twice.
well, that should be anyway.
Who counts how many seconds they wash their hands?
Well,
Just
who
sing
counts
a
how
song
long that you
twice.
brush your teeth? You guys count when you brush your teeth?
Well, I have
No,
that
it's just a
electronic
timer
toothbrush,
thing. Yeah,
and it shuts off,
exactly.
so I don't have to think about it. Maybe you need to install faucets that run for 20 seconds.
These ones don't even. Yeah.
Not even
in
for
our
free.
office, yeah.
So.
It's like there's a motion in our office. There's a motion sensor. You hit the motion sensor and you get a split second of water, and then you gotta wash like one hand at a time, while you block the sensor with the other hand.
It's like a game of like whack-a-mole. Like you gotta like constantly play dodge and.
If somebody gets sick, they
Your
can sue
faucets
for
are
loss.
making you sick.
Possibly, yeah.
There it is.
Yeah. But yeah, crazy. I think. I don't know what else we have here. Additionally, refrain from spreading the illness. If you're sick, stay home. Cover your cough and sneeze with a tissue, and then throw the tissue in the trash. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects and surfaces. I wash my hands after the bathroom out of common courtesy
Thank
for
you.
anybody else who might
Thank
be
you.
watching me go to the bathroom. And when people aren't there, just to stick with habit. all
Thank
right?
you, Justin.
But
Good
like,
to
I don't.
know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we
I
all
like
shake your
TMI.
hand.
You guys saw War of the Worlds, right? The aliens came down here. Aliens came down.
Yeah.
They killed a bunch of
Yeah.
people, and then they got sick because they weren't used to our bacteria, and they
Right.
died. They all died.
Well,
Like
that's
without
a
fail,
fact.
every daily alien one after the other died.
Being exposed to germs
It's a good thing.
is
So
good for your
I
immune
like
system.
germs. I get off the subway. I don't wash my hands.
Do you lick the pole in the subway too then?
It's too far for me.
Okay.
But I'm not one of those, you know.
Why could I imagine him doing that? Just
Because
somebody
I've
that-
known him a long time. I've seen him
wouldn't-
do something.
I wouldn't raise like a bubble baby. And fuck, I'd lick a subway pole if you put money on it. Yeah.
But just don't do a pole outside in the winter if it's wet.
That I read
A
about.
la
yeah.
Christmas Story.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right.
But anything else you guys want to add about coronavirus?
I gotta say, I do feel bad for the people that have it.
Yeah.
I think it's terrible, but I think this is actually bringing awareness to common sense, which a lot of people have lost along the way. And if people were courteous and didn't sneeze and cough on other people and put their fingers where they don't belong and then touch someone, that's kind of rude. So it's kind of bringing back good manners, good habits.
I like the idea. Yeah, potentially just bringing back good manners.
Yes.
I don't like
Good
like
hygiene.
to cough into my hand and then shake somebody's hand, or you know, when you sneeze and then you shake somebody's. That's
Nothing
That's
wrong with feeling
Yeah.
guilty about doing that. That's probably a very common feeling.
yeah. But I think, you know, especially now it's raising awareness of that, because some people do without knowing it. So it's raising their awareness of that.
I wasn't brought up that way. It's called common courtesy,
Yes.
respect for others.
Now, like I do feel bad for some victims.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's a nursing home in Washington State where somebody got it and died, and now that entire nursing home has gotten infected.
Yeah.
Well, so nursing
that's
homes,
yeah.
nursing
that's a
home
really
people, I
sad
think, need to
scenario.
be following this and then some to the T's.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
and but somebody who's 25 years old or 35 years old, who's healthy,
Don't
probably,
snot-nose
probably,
them and
but still, I
handshake
mean, these are pretty loose. I don't think this is anything extreme.
No.
Right.
But I'm still not washing my hands every 20
Right.
minutes, for 20 seconds. Hot water. We don't even choose the temperature of the water here.
No.
So, and you have anything you want to add on Corona?
I'm good.
I'm a big Corona fan, by the way. I
Yeah,
love the new
mine.
Premier one.
Okay, but I
feel
must
bad
say,
for the
do you know
company.
how many people, my sister drinks Corona beer, have actually said to her in all reality, can you get the virus from that? And I'm like, stop it. Don't
Poor
even
company.
say that you just said that.
There was a poll that came out that 38% of Americans right now are not drinking Corona because they think it's related to a virus. I mean, this just plays right into this.
That's
We
not
should, you know
true.
what? We should have been
That's
drinking
terrible.
Corona for this.
Oh shit, yeah.
Darn it.
Refill.
But I like the Premier though, because it's low calories. It still says Corona, and most people don't know it's Michelob Ultra. Really.
We could have poured our wine into a Corona bottle.
All right, so something really cool that I want to talk about is pets in apartments. Big deal in New York City. I have a building there's 3 towers in my building that all share a common entrance. So there's 40 floors per tower. Maybe 39. I don't know if there's a 13 or not. Maybe they go from 13 to from 12 to 14. I don't know.
Most
Relevant
buildings
for the
don't.
episode. But there's a lot of dog piss.
In the building?
Out. Well, every once in a while, there's a little puddle in the elevator because you can't hold it. When there's people on the elevator with me with dogs, I always get out of the way and let the dog go first because I'm just thinking if I'm that dog, I am out the door. Like total
Anxiety.
sympathy for that dog. Like I want that dog outside. He's been holding it all day long. Sometimes it's really yellow, which means it's probably super dehydrated. I feel really bad for the yellow piss dogs. But there's a lot of dog piss in my building.
You know what? And the elevator
For all
spots.
you watching at home,
aren't-
I think
might
Justin
not
needs
always
some
be
new
the
hobbies.
dogs.
Anyone have any suggestions?
This is not a hobby.
I don't know.
Okay.
You.
But it's just it's a hot topic for me. Okay.
Oh wow.
So sorry, I missed
No,
completely.
but you know, I love animals. You can't always blame that spot in the elevator on the dog. I'm just saying, if you weren't there, you didn't see it.
But you don't curb your dog. You know what that means?
Yes,
What does it mean?
it means you don't curb your dog.
What does it mean? What does it mean? It means if your dog's
Gotta go.
where do they go?
They have to go on the grass.
They don't go on the curb.
Correct.
Yes.
They have to go on the grass.
Yes. So, which I wish the doorman in my building would enforce that. He'd just run and like kick the little dogs off onto the street. I'm kidding. But I wish there would be some
There's a
enforcement.
law against that.
There's a law against that?
Yeah.
Animal cruelty.
They're not breaking ribs.
Depending on how
Justin needs a
small it
lawyer.
is.
But really, I think it needs to be more enforced.
Is it the owner not taking
Just
the
think
dog,
about
or the
just
doorman?
think about how many potential dogs are in a 40-story building times 3 that come out of the building
Go in the same
and
spot.
piss and shit in the same
Absolutely.
place. And imagine in the wintertime when there's snowbanks.
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
Can I share a personal anecdote to this?
I also pee in the snow.
And
Right outside the door of the building.
Yeah.
depending what bar.
Depending how late it is.
Yeah. But I want to say though, in the summertime, that happens in a lot of buildings that we do show, where they allow pets in these high rises.
And the heat.
And the heat
Yes.
makes the smell of urine so strong
Yes, I know.
that it's almost at a point where it's just like, I don't like, fuck this. I don't even want to walk near this
Right.
building. It reeks.
Yeah. But let me
Awful.
also point this out. Do you know that if I have a pet area, I have a yard fenced in, then I have a small pet yard so that the dogs can run?
Got
If
it.
you don't treat that area every so often, that grassy area is going to continually stink, especially in the heat.
Yep.
So it's not just that they go on the curb, the grass. Whatever area they go on has to be treated.
So this is a good parlay from the lawyer here to tell you
That she
you
doesn't
need,
pee in the snow?
First of all, I advise clients get rid of the word pet. There's no such thing as pet in any lease that I will ever write. It's
What
an
do you call
animal.
Okay, so I like this. I like, because
Yeah.
we had a issue, we had a discussion earlier about landlord and owner, which
Yep.
I liked. I like
Correct.
the word owner
Yeah.
because landlord has a negative connotation these
Sure.
days. So pet versus animal.
What's the problem
So,
with pet?
I copyrighted an animal responsibility addendum that I tell all my clients to use. And the purpose for that is there are exceptions to some classifications of animals that are not pets. And so if you can create one addendum to encompass all animals, you will save yourself the hassle of having a pet addendum versus a assistance animal addendum and not being able to have them
So-
potentially be signing on to one document when in the middle of their lease they could change to having a pet and having that pet become an emotional support animal.
I mean, my thing, pet sounds more recreational
Right.
than animal. And animal allows you to disambiguate the two. Right? That's my thinking on it. But then in disambiguating the two, you have a service animal.
Sure.
And then you have
Emotional
emotional
support.
support. Is there a difference between service and emotional support? Or is
Yes.
an emotional support a service?
So in the pecking order of what pets fall into, everything falls under
Pecking order
the
implies bird, though, right?
Also,
We'll get there. We'll get there.
help it.
But so
I'm sure we'll
we
get
have
there.
assistance animals, and I like to teach clients that the overarching umbrella, everything falls under an assistance animal. So an assistance animal could be a service animal, it could be an emotional support animal, or it could be a therapy animal. And so I'll go through those for you so we
can't
break
do
out what they are. But basically,
Ask Brian or Adam, sorry.
service animals, there was HUD guidance. So
Mm-hmm.
for any of you who don't know what HUD guidance is, it is basically a legal document that comes out from the government that states exactly how you are supposed to handle a situation. And in this case, in 2013, we got HUD guidance on assistance animals. And recently, on January 30th, we got clarification guidance, which supersedes and takes the 2013 guidance and pushes it aside. And so the January 30th guidance is now what everybody should be following.
This is part of the reinterpretation that brokers have an issue with.
Yeah.
There's the entire reinterpretation.
And we can post a link so people can get it.
Okay.
on
Is
your-
the entire interpretation suspended, or just that aspect of it?
So nope, this January 30th guidance will supersede the 2013
Takes place
guidance.
of.
It replaces
But
it.
that's not part of also the Tenant Protection Act.
It has nothing
It's
to do with
completely
that.
separate. Okay,
Completely
just making
separate.
Sure.
Yes. So what this does is, if somebody comes to you and they ask for a service animal, it defines what a service animal is. So a
Okay.
service animal now is only a dog. It used to
okay.
have a minor
I was
exception.
going to ask you that.
Yeah, so it's only a dog. So if somebody comes to you and they say, I have a service monkey or I have a service elephant, and don't laugh because this is what I deal with all day long, it is not possible. The only possible service animal is a dog. And once we look at, okay, it's a dog that they're saying is a service animal, is that animal specifically trained for someone's specific disability or a disability that they have maybe not been assigned to somebody who has a disability yet, but they've been trained to be like a hearing dog or a seeing eye dog. And so that is very specific. You will never be able to pretty much challenge that because that animal will have service papers that state it's been trained for some very specific purpose to help an individual who has a need and a bona fide disability.
Got it. Okay.
Okay. I'm reading through what you highlighted here. I think you just kind of touched on pretty much all of it. You really didn't give me much of a chance here, but
Well, so this part of it
I
is.
thought we were going to go back and forth on this, but by all means.
We still are. You have to ask this.
Okay, is the animal, is it apparent, sorry, is it readily apparent that the dog is trained to do work or perform?
It's
Remember,
not
we're all
about us
mic'd up
today.
here. We're all mic'd up here. We'd like some comments at some point. All right? We're going to run this way. Enjoy the drinks. Enjoy the drinks. Is it readily apparent the dog is trained to do work or perform tasks for the benefit of an individual with a disability?
So you read that sentence, and most people are like, what's readily apparent, right? So there is something called a readily apparent standard, which means Deb has a tenant that comes in, and she's looking at this applicant, and she's saying to the applicant, okay, what is the purpose of this animal? You would not be able to ask that if they're coming in a wheelchair, or you know they're deaf, or you know that they have a disability that they've pre-disclosed to you. So the readily apparent standard minimizes what you as a landlord can ask for additional information. So if you already know by looking at the
Yeah, but if
individual
I make that
they are disabled, you're not able to ask any more questions.
What if I'm not sure? Can they?
Well, then it's not
Then it's not readily apparent.
Worst case scenario, you end up in court, and then. But
Yeah.
I think readily, if you're in a wheelchair
It's
or you're
still that
blind,
again.
Right, you
Or
know
pretending to be
that they
blind.
are disabled.
Right.
if somebody's holding onto the dog and the dog has a full body vest on, and they're holding onto the dog, that's one thing.
Right.
If they're holding onto the dog like this and walking into the building, maybe not readily apparent. I
Right.
feel like I don't like the fact that it's so open to interpretation and it's not spelled out. But I feel like you could make a pretty.
If you're unsure, there is a requirement that the person, there's a two-prong test to be able to allow it.
readily
One
apparent
is
or-
that they are disabled. The second is that there's a nexus between your disability and the useful purpose of that animal. So the animal has to support a function of the disability so that it alleviates some problem that you're having. So, for instance,
But that's not readily apparent.
Correct.
Right. Like a woman,
Right.
like a woman that I
Right.
have that has seizures, and the dog detects seizures.
right,
I would never
you
know.
would never know that. However, if somebody comes in and they are using a cane because they are blind, you're going to know that that animal is seeing eye dog.
Right.
Or if they're deaf, they're going to be something that the animal, God forbid there's a fire, is going to alert them that the strobe light is going off and wake that individual up. So it's on its face, looking at the person. It's not really up for interpretation. It's subjectively, in your opinion, do you think that that person has a disability? If you can look at them and say, yes, they do, then that conversation ends. If you're unsure, it can continue, and Justin can ask these questions.
Okay. Is it readily apparent when the dog is observed? Okay, we answered that. The housing provider may ask, in substance, is the animal required because of a disability? Is this continue here?
Yes, sorry.
What work or
Continue
task
that
would
way.
the animal have been trained to perform? And so you can ask, what task does the animal do?
Absolutely.
So you're protected to say, what's your animal do?
right,
With
because
someone
you need
who's-
to know.
Someone who has seizures, I'm just curious, what does the animal do?
Yep.
Besides my seizures. Okay.
So let me prime
Well,
it
it's
for you guys.
supposed to alert somebody else that a seizure's coming on. That's what.
Right.
they
So let
tell
me prime it quickly so that we get the legal jargon here. But someone with a disability falls into one of three prongs. Either they are somebody who has a disability because it substantially limits one or major life activities. Life activities are what we're doing. We're learning, we're drinking, we're working, we're, walking,
breathing.
anything. Basically anything on a daily activity is a major life activity, but it has to substantially limit something. So they can't do some major function that the rest of us do easy.
Got
The
it.
second is that they are regarded as having a disability. So it would be something that you had a disability, you might have had cancer, let's say, and 10 years later, you are in remission, but that person still remembers that you are, had cancer in your past, and they still think you're disabled because of it. So as long as you at some point were disabled and somebody continues to think you are still disabled, it is something that would cover you under the American with Disabilities Act. And
Got
the
it.
last one is, you never in fact have a disability, but I always use this as my example. Let's say you have a facial scar on your face and it covers, the whole part of your face, and somebody looks at you and they say, oh, they must be disabled because they have a facial scar. When in actuality, it doesn't affect any major life activity. You can work, you can go to, activities with your friends, but somebody looks at you and says, wow, you look like you're disabled, so you must be disabled.
Thanks.
That covers you. So one of the quotes I love is, society's myths and fears of what someone looks like causes people to actually perceive that you have a disability when you in fact don't.
Whoa.
Deep, right?
Yeah, that was
So-
pretty good though. Wow.
But that is something that will cover you. So if you fall into one of those three prongs,
Okay.
you're disabled. So that's the first test. You have to be disabled. The second is, there needs to be this nexus. So you're coming to me as a landlord and you're saying, I need this animal for this very specific purpose. And I'm saying, okay, well, you're saying you suffer from depression. What is that animal going to do for you to alleviate that depression? And it may just be the pure animal's company keeps you from being suicidal. To give you real context to that argument and to give you a tenant's perspective, I rarely represent tenants. I'm a landlord's attorney. However, there are times when I get a case that I'm like, I'm so passionate about this, I have to represent them.
Okay.
I got a New Yorker who is a Wall Street executive who is making 7 figures, who after 9/11, he witnessed the events and he lived in Manhattan. His wife was a superintendent in Westchester at a school district, and so they had this relationship where Monday through Friday they lived separately, and on the weekends they would get together.
Okay.
This guy witnesses what happens on 9/11, and he becomes a shell of himself. He can't function. He's emotionally distraught when he's alone, and so he sits in his apartment at night. He can't cook for himself. He can't function. He doesn't watch TV. He basically sits in a corner and he cries over the events. His wife can't move because her job is in Westchester. Spill. The Italian hands will get me every time. So he goes to the doctor, and for a 5-year span, he documents that he has a disability. He suffers from traumatic post-traumatic
Post-traumatic
stress.
stress.
Totally not
PTSD.
observable.
Absolutely merited by the fact that he literally lives across from the trade towers and he works down there. And when it's documented that he's with his wife, he's fine. When he's in company at his Wall Street job, he's fine. But when he goes home and he's alone, it perseverates the problem. So he gets an emotional support animal. He goes to his apartment owner and says, I need this emotional support animal so that I can survive, basically, because I need to eat and I need to sleep.
You need the interaction, whatever
Yeah.
reason, yeah.
And the owner says no. And so we write a letter and we say he falls under the classification of someone who's disabled, and we have documentation for 5 years that a doctor supports. There's a nexus between the animal supporting his depression and the fact that he won't be suicidal. He will be able to function. And they still say no.
One second. If you're live on Instagram or Facebook and you have an emotional support animal, I'd love some feedback on this, because none of us have. You have animals. You have animals? No.
Mine aren't emotional. Well, they're not really emotional
But they're not
support.
certified. And,
No, not at all.
Okay. So I just want to
No,
interrupt you
no,
there.
absolutely,
So, but they
yeah.
say no a second time.
So they say no a second time. We commenced a demand letter where we said we're going to sue you, and their attorneys get involved. And at that point, it's a back and forth, and we settled for $100,000 in this person's favor, because if I had taken that through litigation, it would have been upwards of $1 million. They were in complete breach of fair housing laws, of HUD. They need to make a reasonable accommodation when someone shows they are disabled and there is a need and a nexus between what their disability is and what the animal is going to support. So it's not all gimmick based. There's a lot of gimmicks. There's internet letters.
Well, that's what I want to talk about next.
Yeah.
Can we get into that?
Absolutely.
I would love to actually.
All right,
too.
we've had clients that have an animal. I tell them you can't have an animal in the building. Certify their animal for the sake of having it in the building.
Right.
But there's so many websites. You can do it for 35 or 85 bucks.
Certapet.com,
They send you the,
emotionalsupport.com.
they send you, they add them to the registry, whatever, their own registry.
Yeah, their own.
So I will tell you, I registered a cucumber.
Okay.
I just giggles one day
I-
was like, hey, let's
you-
register pet cucumber.
You could have chosen broccoli, but
Right?
is it, you.
It's not even pickled.
Yeah.
Like,
No,
come
but
on,
you could have.
it's-
Yeah.
I don't know what the support.
It was approved as an emotional support
well,
animal.
but it would be more likely than broccoli.
Yeah, you paid them a fee.
I
Of course
literally
they're approved.
lied, their questionnaire. A doctor, quote unquote, validated my answers and said I was depressed and needed this cucumber.
People
So,
are weird. Though.
it's a
People
given.
are
Don't you
weird,
think though the doctors should be held responsible for these?
Absolutely.
Signing
So
these things?
we've started training doctors. It's a mechanism I do is I go to hospitals and I train doctors on you're certifying this person is disabled. Do you know what that means? It's your license on
Well,
the line.
So sorry, go ahead.
But here's my question. He certified a cucumber to be an emotional support
I didn't,
animal.
she did.
Who's signing that document?
A quote unquote doctor
Okay.
who is a consultant to this company.
Okay, obviously a fraudulent doctor who knows a cucumber. I'm assuming
I don't think
he
there is
knows,
a doctor. though.
No,
Well, that's what
exactly.
I'm
That's my
asking.
point.
There's
The
gotta
internet-
be.
These
the
are
internet,
clearing
the internet's a
houses.
big place right now, and it's very much unpoliced,
Right.
and there's a lot of shit that's going on the internet.
Well, the question though is this though. If they're saying that we have to follow the law, which we do as landlords, it should also be that if they need a document signed by a doctor, that the government should make sure that these letters being signed are really by doctors.
Well, okay, so hold on for 1 second because I want to make sure everybody's clear. It's not just a doctor. So the
I have a question.
It's a cucumber.
Somebody said what kind of doctor?
okay,
Like, that's
exactly.
what I'm
Just
trying
let
to
me
figure
answer.
out.
That's where,
So,
that's where,
yeah.
The HUD guidance that was issued states that it can be anyone who is potentially knowledgeable about that person's disability. So it can be a doctor, a psychiatrist, a your regular physician that you go visit. It can be a nurse practitioner. It can be a psychologist.
But all those people you're talking about have a degree. You just
It
said the
could-
law says
it can
anyone
be a
who
third
has.
party. So I
It could be a
Deb's
sister.
best friend and know that if she didn't have this animal, she would suffer from massive depression. Absolutely. However, I will say this. So I've been an attorney for more than a decade. In this realm, 90% of what we get are from doctors that I can look up, get an idea of are they certified or licensed in a certain state. There have been many times where I have found LA actors posing as doctors. We've actually done a lot of work where it's somebody who's an actor posing as a doctor. I mean, this is the nonsense we deal with.
Are they
How does- what do you
penalized
mean?
for this?
How does that work?
So we
Yeah.
How
Googled
do
a
you-
doctor,
Okay.
Are they
and
held
they come
accountable?
up as an actor on IDMB's website.
Right,
IMDb.
but who's
Whatever.
holding them
Thank you.
accountable? Because that's bad behavior. That's fraud.
Right. So I have created a form system where we get an intake from a client and we push back against that. We say, we have reviewed your credentials and you are not certified in the state of New York as a doctor or a physician to make these statements. We're asking for a local doctor to make an opinion on this issue.
No, and I respect that. But my question is, HUD's putting out guidelines, which I think they need to do, but is HUD also going after and holding these people accountable that are apparent frauds?
New York has not yet. So I
Is
I
any
believe
state?
there's like 22 other states that have created legislation where if you lie that this animal is an emotional support animal, when in fact it is not, it is a misdemeanor. New York has
Good.
not done that.
Well,
that
without-
is on my list of things we will
Perfect.
lobby for once we're
Perfect.
done with the HSTPA, but that is a problem.
Well, can I ask something? I've heard in the news that a lot of airlines are now cutting back on the amount, the type of emotional support animal allowed on a plane.
Let me ask a question though, because it's got to be clear and apparent. So if you're just booking a ticket, you're not observing that person. So if you're the airline, can you ask for documentation at the time of ticket booking? I think you should be able to.
Right.
So real-time story I can give you. I know somebody who brought an emotional support animal on a plane. They
What
were
was
going
it?
to South Carolina.
Animal or vegetable?
Animal. It was a dog. However, they got their fine They went to Charleston. They got their fine.
It was a
On
little
the way
pee in
home.
the bottom of the plane.
Yeah, exactly.
On the way home, somebody next to them said, "I'm allergic to dogs. I can't sit next to this person."
I think this is cool though. I think this is really why it's an issue.
Right. And so there
Because
was
we
an
allow,
air
because,
marshal.
sorry,
No,
but
no, go ahead.
we allow crying babies, and it sucks for everybody.
Yep.
Legit.
But you have a yapping dog, you know.
Right.
But an allergy's like you can't deal with. Sorry,
Right, you can't.
An allergy you can't deal with.
And let's say
So-
you're really allergic. You didn't bring your dog allergy medicine on the plane because you didn't think there was going to be a dog.
No, fair
So
enough.
this person went to the air marshal who was on the plane.
How do they know what?
There was an argument that took place. The air marshal got up.
Okay.
The
I was gonna say,
air
yeah.
marshal was like, "All right, where's the third-party note stating that this animal should be accompanying you?" The person didn't have the credentials. The air marshal removed that person from the
Mid-air.
airline.
Awesome.
Mid-air.
Gone.
Not mid-air.
No,
I'm
mid-air.
joking.
With a
They
parachute
did a
though.
bungee jump. Yeah, no, they couldn't get on the plane. It cost that person $3,500 to rebook their flight. But these are the things that are missing from the Air Carrier Access Act and the law under emotional support animals.
So you said the emotional support animal can only be a dog.
The service animal can
Okay,
only be a
so-
dog. Most recently, if any of you are following on social media, there was a miniature horse that sat first class.
Yeah.
That went
I've
on an
never heard of it.
airline.
I've
Yeah,
never
My
heard of
this
it.
goodness,
just happened.
really? Oh yeah,
I will adjust
they have
this
videos
recent.
on Facebook. So how can then an airline restrict an emotional support animal to
They-
only a dog? Aren't they now?
They need to amend the Air Carrier Access Act, which is what some airlines are trying to do. And the Air Carrier Access Act does not the two of them, this and the HUD guidance, they don't go together. They are separate acts. But the Air Carrier Access Act has always been ahead of the game. They have restricted more animals from being on their planes after Derek the Peacock got on and
What
the
does
duck
that-
went on.
what
and,
takes-
I heard about
you
that
know,
peacock
all these
too.
crazy animals.
What takes priority? What law does that override HUD guidelines?
No, they're separate completely.
So are they're following the Air Carrier Act, but they're violating HUD guidelines?
HUD only applies to housing. So it will
so that
not
has nothing to do with
apply
planes.
to airplanes. No. No.
Okay,
Totally
then
separate
how-
So
law.
why were they letting horses on the plane?
Because the Air Carrier Access Act does not limit that yet.
not been
Because
updated.
Good
because they're-
Lord.
it's a corporate issue of having the
Right.
balls to say no and then argue that shit in court.
Right.
And I want to fast forward 12 years because I really was about to say 30, but shit's happening faster and faster.
I know.
But I want to fast forward 12 years and just we're either going to be much more strict or like fucking airplane's going to be a zoo. Your parakeet isn't going to be allowed to be in a cage
Yep.
because it's not nice for the parakeet, right?
And don't let them
Like
sit in the
just-
exit row because they can't open that
well,
door.
clearly. So, but that's going to be the only. That's going to be the only. Rules for your stupid ass parakeet.
All I'm saying, if you let snakes on a plane, I'm out.
Yeah,
I'm done.
no.
I'll
But-
take the Oregon
but that's
Trail.
what I wanna
so
fast
you
forward.
say that, but I've gotten, as an attorney, I get these requests in from clients, and we're talking, I've literally gotten requests for elephants, monkeys, tigers, tarantulas. Like
Oh, yeah.
literally
That's not cool.
requests for animals to be emotional support
You're good
animals.
though. She didn't mention a snake.
You didn't.
So you're good.
I didn't, but like you
But
can
it's
go
there,
there.
though.
You can
It's
go
there.
there.
I
Yeah.
have such a phobia of snakes that like I would probably
I'm bringing
somehow
one
like
in.
I have an
climb the
idea.
ceiling.
Bring your
I-
emotional support tiger to sit next to you to save you from.
eat
That's
the food.
perfectly fine.
I remember
would-
trying to smuggle back little geckos for flying back from the south in like Florida and stuff. Never did it, but I remember like proposing the idea. This is way pre 9/11. You know, they didn't scan your shit. You just got
Also
in the
before he
plane.
my
grew
God.
up too. I was,
Then are you liable if your emotional support animal eats someone else's emotional support
Well,
animal?
so
And then they have to watch
in
it?
New York, the law is if you know that that animal has a vicious propensity or is a danger to another person or animal, and you know it as a tenant and you don't disclose it to a landlord, that is a problem because a landlord, once they're on notice, the second time it happens, the landlord becomes liable.
Well,
So,
and that's
It's
insane
a
for
big
the landlord.
insurance problem.
Absolutely.
I saw one of these giant fluffy dogs, he looked like a teddy bear, almost like a Coca-Cola style bear, in the lobby just walking through. Another dog went in. This thing turned like vicious, Like, I was the last thing I expected to happen with this animal. But split second, another dog came in, type noise. There's probably a bad example,
Did it
but either
sound
way,
just
Met
like
this
that,
dog in
or-
your lobby. What's wrong with
Repeat.
that dog?
there was a lot more. There was a lot more. I don't know, spit involved. But the dog just went all
Yeah.
gnarly and shit at the other dog on a split second, which is just like, imagine if you're
On a
a
plane, you're
4-year-old.
screwed.
No, imagine. But I'm not even talking about. I'm talking back about apartment building.
baby.
Imagine if you're a 4-year-old trying to pet that dog. Right.
So landlords need to put things in place that can't happen. So I copyrighted an animal responsibility addendum. The first two questions are: does this animal have a vicious propensity to bite or act
Of course
aggressive?
not.
But most people don't ask that. You will be shocked. Most landlords on their pet addendum, they don't ask that question.
Can I ask a question though on that? Because most people, when it comes to their animals, feel that my dog would. It's like children.
It's like children.
My child would never do that.
Right.
My dog would never do that. So they're always going to check off.
No, but
Right.
you got to have a corresponding provision in your lease and your application that says if you misrepresent or fraudulently omit an answer, it's a default under the lease.
Got it. All
So
right.
you make sure that you cover if you answer falsely, knowing you're doing so because there's factual information which your vet will have if you get that veterinary record. It will tie it all together.
Well, let me ask you
Wow.
something
Okay,
else.
cool.
Now we have with the new laws, the HSTPA, you can no longer charge a pet deposit.
Oh, totally. Let's talk about this.
Oh yeah, I want to talk about that too. Actually.
I am working on. Not only did I take me 4 months to evict a tenant under the new laws at $1,000 a month, and they already owed me 2, so now I'm out 6. Their 3 pit bulls that they brought in without permission urinated through 4 layers of flooring, and I still can't get the smell out. If I couldn't take a pet deposit, I mean, I've well exceeded the pet deposit.
Yeah,
but
of course.
how do you protect your property from damage from a pet?
All right, so first of all, there should never been a pet deposit because security deposits are fully refundable.
Again, we're not using pet.
Right.
I
Animal.
like fully refundable though.
But that's can no
But
longer
in
do that.
actuality, nobody does that. So it's
Yeah.
not that you're going to give it back because, answer me, 9 times out of 10, there's something
There is
that a
damage
pet
from the
does.
animal.
Fine, so
that's
document that shit.
right,
the wall.
but don't
Right.
call
Or-
it a pet deposit because
First of
the
all, we're
deposit.
not using pet. Animal deposit.
Animal.
Right. The problem is that
Turtles pee too. Cucumbers don't. Sorry.
If you squeeze them hard enough, they might.
cucumbers do not. No.
All right, so you got an animal deposit.
Animal deposit is just something we should get away from. It's a bad legal
Okay.
term.
So what can we do?
We don't want to do that. We want to have a one-time, non-refundable pet deposit for the privilege
You
of
can't say
having
deposit,
an animal.
though.
I don't
or
like
pet,
that.
pet
I don't,
fee.
I don't
Sorry.
like that. I don't like
Pet
that. As a
fee.
broker, I don't like that. You know why? Because now it costs more to that person. I like refundable. I think
You're
14
violating-
days.
you're violating
I
the
think
laws.
14 days is too little. I think 14 days is too little.
To return the security.
Yes.
But you can't charge more than 1 month's rent deposit. So you can't
ch-
call
So
it
we
a pet
had
deposit.
didn't we talk about this 2 or 3 months ago about 2 months ago or so about the pet deposit needs to be additional rent or something like
Correct,
that?
yes.
Have you changed your stance on that?
No.
And can you reiterate what it was?
Right. So, generally speaking, I don't like pet deposits. I would
Animal
tell a
deposits.
client, don't use a one-time fee. What I've told clients is raise your
Okay.
additional rent
I got to
amount.
sell this. Your clients are landlords. I have to sell this
To
to the
tenants,
tenant,
right.
which is it's going to cost you an extra $1,000 for this animal.
Right.
You don't get it back.
I wouldn't
It's much
suggest
easier
that.
for me to sell. You get it back.
Right. Or what I tell clients is lower it. Lower it to $200 or $300 for a
Hold up.
one
$200.
That's what are you going to do with $200?
There's nothing.
No, that's the one-time fee for having the privilege of an animal, and then make it a $75 fee per month
Oh, in addition.
in
you're saying.
addition to your rent for
Which-
the privilege of having that animal.
So if they don't pay that, if you take them to court for eviction,
Right.
let's say they're paying their rent but not that, you can't take them to eviction court for not paying you that $75 a month because you can't sue for additional rent.
That's right.
So
but you can take them into small claims.
And take it
Or
over.
what I've done in most of my leases is reserve the right during the lease to send demand letters and sue during the term of
I was
the
going
lease.
to ask you, can
So-
you do that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Can you have a
Absolutely.
resident who's current on their rent,
Yes.
but not paying their
Yes.
additional pet
You-
rent, and take them to small claims?
In the lease?
Has
Absolutely.
a judge? I'm surprised.
Absolutely.
But you can't write a lease between you and the pet animal.
You do.
Can you?
Yeah.
Really?
Does
you
the pet
do.
sign it?
Wow.
You're writing a pet addendum, and that becomes part of the lease.
Yeah, ink on
So-
paw. Ink on paw.
You have to have an animal responsibility addendum, which for Justin's people, I will gladly give free of charge if they want, which is all encompassing of you violate XYZ, and there are default provisions that
Oh, thank
you
Rob.
have remedies for,
Might I-
including that ability to
Make a
sue.
little water.
Might I suggest, as a landlord, in the past, when we could charge a pet deposit, let's say for me a cat's like $300, a dog is $6 to $8, whatever the dog is, I would rather, as a landlord, ask for that deposit up front, but say to them, this is because of the new laws, it's non-refundable, because I know that they're going to default on that extra monthly rent. In my past experience.
The question becomes, is it in advance? And is it something beyond the rent that they're paying at the time they're signing a lease? And that's the argument
Oh,
from
so
the other
that's still
side.
not okay to do.
That's the argument.
I feel
Can
like
I-
the language is that anything a penny over 1 month and
penny
1 month
over.
security in any.
Right.
I
That's
feel like-
the
I feel-
strict interpretation.
I feel like
of
the
law.
language is pretty clear on that though.
So you're saying I can't charge a pet fee?
I'm not saying you can't. I'm saying that strict interpretation would mean nothing over 1 month's security. However, my legal standpoint is a pet is an ancillary part of that lease.
Animal.
You could create or animal.
I just
Thank
like
you.
animals.
Right,
so
I
much
think if
better
we
than
keep
pets.
correcting each other, eventually it'll stick.
So if you, Debbie, want a animal, but Adam does not, he shouldn't be subject to additional amounts in his lease. It should be
Right.
something that you are paying for the privilege of having the animal on property.
Got it.
So
Can I bring up a personal thing that's happened many times in the business where I've had, especially recently, clients tell me, well, I have an emotional support animal, and if they're trying to charge me a animal fee, that's wrong.
that's correct.
That is correct.
It is correct. So
Okay.
Yes.
many of the
I
phone
wasn't
calls,
sure,
before
so I'm
the
glad I got that
HSTPA.
information.
let's just
Well,
go
yeah,
through.
if it's emotional support, you
Yeah,
can't.
you
Just like if
can't.
somebody's in a wheelchair and they want to put a ramp or whatever, it's got to go.
So quickly, pitfalls.
Can I ask
Yeah.
one follow-up to that? How do I delegate that between the landlord and the tenant appropriately?
So if you were to use an animal responsibility addendum that I can give you,
Okay.
what I have done for clients is I have said anything that falls into the realm of an emotional support animal or assistance animal or service dog,
Okay.
I tell clients they are identified in red on my addendum. So red means they're exempt from being able to be charged. So things like monthly pet fees, a annual pet fee, breed restrictions. So you will not be able in an assistance animal realm be able to say you can't have a pit bull. Now many people come back at me and they're like, whoa, wait a minute, my insurance company will not allow me to have a pit bull on property. That may be true normally, but the Department of Justice has actually come out with a memo that says if it's an assistance
Wow.
animal and a landlord denies the ability based on the fear
Wow.
of an insurance company saying I'm going to modify, drop, or make your insurance go higher, the Department of Justice wants to report that insurance agency as doing something wrong. And I've actually done that.
Wow.
Well, but here's the sad part of that. We all know in the real world, the insurance companies are going to find a way around. They're going to be onto that, and they're not going to say, we're dropping you because of the pit bull. They're going to see the pit bull, and they're going to find some other thing to write you up for. Been there, done that, and they're going to get around that so they're
Well-
not liable.
Maybe, but I have been successful against a major insurance carrier educating them as to the law because
Oh, sure.
they're just
this
not
time,
aware.
But they're not going to do it again because they're going to learn.
Possibly.
I had an insurance carrier say they were going to drop me for moss on my shingles, and I know it's because of the dogs. I'm like, what? What
Right.
is that? Oh, it could be slippery if maintenance goes up there in
What
the
if
winter.
the dogs go up there, like mountain goats? It could be some
Yeah,
bad
for
right.
an East Mountain dog gonna climb the ridge.
Another-
You got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, right, exactly.
It's fucked up shit, man.
I know it
It
is.
is.
It's, I mean, the
And we get put
dangerous
in the middle of this
animals.
stuff,
the
too. It's-
you know, I grew up in the country, so you could hear all night long
Ernie.
the dogs barking at the wind or at the other dogs.
A leaf.
All night long. The barking thing is like something I grew up with. If I lived in an apartment building with a yapping dog, I would blow my brains out.
That's
I'm
why you
sorry,
need
but
the
I
addendum.
need my own emotional
Right.
support animal to
But
bark back at the other.
You need a
emotional.
recourse for that,
But-
right?
But
you
there's a
need
lot of pet-friendly buildings.
But all you need is an addendum that says nuisance is still something you can get some animal out. So even if they're an emotional support animal, even if they're a service dog, and they violate your quiet enjoyment, they are barking 30 minutes continuously. The owner's not picking up after their waste.
Well, that's sad because it's the owner's problem. The animal,
But
innocent
it doesn't
animal,
matter.
brought up like a bad child, bad behavior.
You could evict that animal. You're not evicting the tenant, and you're not evicting the tenant's right to have an animal. You're just evicting that specific animal.
Where's the animal gonna go?
That is sad, though. That's sad.
Well,
But
I
it's a
know, I know.
multifamily
Adoption.
industry.
I tell you, that's
where-
why this is such a hard business, because it really pulls on your heartstrings.
but it's also a really tricky subject. You love your pets.
yeah, they're
I
amazing.
love
Animals.
I love.
Screw them.
It's all perspective, but from
I love my
from a
animals.
lessor perspective, it's and a lessee perspective.
And to that point, it has nothing to do with this. I have 3 cats right now. Do you know where they came from? My tenants up and moved and left them abandoned.
This is awesome, yeah. So you
Abandoned.
had tenants who
Okay.
left.
Good job.
Oh, yes. I have had tenants move out and left a dog. This was the worst thing. The dog,
Remember
and
this.
I got a call on Friday, my downstairs tenant, because I was going to evict them. They didn't pay me rent. They said, oh, they moved out. I'm like, okay, it was Friday. I go there Monday morning. The dog is chained to a doorknob. The chain is so short, the dog can't sit down. He stood there all weekend. He had not defecated on the floor. Oh my gosh, I was in tears. I brought him downstairs, and immediately, once he hit the outside, defecated everywhere. It was so sad. He hadn't eaten. I put him on my truck. He kept
Defecation is
defecating.
shitting, by the way.
It was just heartbreaking.
Thanks, Chelsea.
But-
We could even talk about that. People that should not have animals, they're not responsible. But
there's a lot. But that's the issue when it comes to being a landlord. You see
Right,
everything.
right. You do.
And a lot of people don't see that.
and you have to deal with it. They leave it, you deal with it.
I've done in a commercial eviction of a pet store that the animals were left, and it
Oh my
was
gosh, what?
6 dogs
Wow.
that were caged 2 by 2,
No, that's not right.
and their paws were almost non-existent because they were trying to obviously get out of the cage, and there were birds and rodents that had gotten out of where they were that literally
Did
were
they get
feeding
eaten?
on the food in the store, and it was a disaster. Made the press. So there's obviously
Wait a minute. This happened a little while ago, didn't it? This was reported by ABC7, wasn't it?
It
yeah,
was.
yeah.
Oh my
yeah,
gosh,
yeah.
that's terrible.
I used
Did
to
any
work
of the
there, so that's
animals
how I
eat
know
the
that.
animals?
Okay, all
Oh,
right.
God.
But no, my thing with the breed restrictions and things is it's
That
really
story was
Are we
rough.
totally going left?
No, it's a nature of raising the animal, and I will be honest with you. I'm on the elevator with certain animals, and I feel very uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And having seen friendly-looking animals attack
Yeah.
other friendly-looking animals who are just like fuck this, like I don't even know what to do. It's a weird place to be. But I feel like if you're going to bring an animal into a building, either the building allows it, and I think every building owner has the right to take extra rent or, in my opinion, a security deposit for that animal. The breed restriction, I think, how do you qualify an animal?
You got to go on gut feeling. You have to. You just.
So
But,
a landlord can set whatever parameters they want for a pet, but when it is an assistance animal, the guidance says you can't determine. There are no breed restrictions
Right.
at all.
Yeah.
There's no weight restrictions. There's no puppy versus non-puppy. There's no 1 animal or 7 emotional support animals, as long as each animal can be justified to support a function of the disability.
So let's go back a second, because before we were talking about these, and I'm going to say bogus and bullshit websites
Absolutely.
that really
We're-
aren't that great. And
Yeah.
landlords,
You and I as brokers are very familiar with these.
we are,
Yeah.
of course we are, but they're bullshit websites. Come
Absolutely.
on, and landlords are fully aware of this. So my question to you is, how does somebody properly get their pet registered and
So-
fall under the category
With
of
solid
emotional
Right,
support?
yep. legislation,
So
I feel.
the thing that really is bad about these laws is emotional support animals require no certification and no licensing to support a specific disability. That is what they are. They are
Wow.
free-formed animals that most of the time what we're getting is requests for a reasonable accommodation to have an emotional support animal without ever identifying what that animal is at the time they're applying. So they
Right.
can go to a pet store and pick a pet, and as long as that's going to support their emotional element, that is fine. So that's the problem, and that is what I, as an attorney, have done letters to say, whoa, wait a minute. this is something that you're asking for, but this is completely broad. It's overly broad in terms of what you're asking for. It doesn't support anything that you're saying. It's never been trained, and not that it has to be, but it's showing that this animal was picked out of a hat. Whether that animal is going to actually function, this doctor that you so unquote say supports it has never met the animal. It's never looked at what the animal does when it's with you. And maybe you've never met that patient because you did an internet 10-minute questionnaire. That's BS.
10 minutes.
So that's all they have
high.
to do
Right,
is
right.
So what would someone have to do to actually get the paperwork to get document that say they need the
So
emotional
again, for
support to animal?
Justin's people watching, I will gladly give my forms up.
No,
But
what does the tenant have to do?
So
they want to have
the
an emotional
tenant doesn't have to do anything.
Do you
The
have
They don't have
tenant,
to have a form?
At any point during the tenancy, all they have to do is vocalize, either orally or written, that they want a reasonable accommodation to accept an emotional support animal.
And you're saying that animal doesn't have to have any
The
documentation.
animal doesn't have to have anything. Now, if you're the landlord, here's what the landlord should be doing. The landlord should be getting the veterinary records
thought it
to
was said
make
vegetable.
sure that that animal is
Cucumber.
vaccinated and the animal has never bitten someone before. Because the landlord will step into a situation they don't want to be in if the animal has bitten someone before. Any liability that thereafter happens from a bite will become the landlord's. So you want to make sure you have some working document that makes sure they've never done that. The other thing is that you want to make sure you have a working form, an addendum of some sort that says if that animal does anything during the tenancy to be vicious, bite someone, act as a nuisance, that the landlord has recourse to get rid of that animal. If you don't use an animal responsibility addendum or something like kind, you're going to be without recourse to get rid of that animal.
All right, guys, we gotta get moving on to the next subject. Though.
Yep.
Is that cool?
Yep,
Is that cool? My biggest issue, you guys know, is the curb your animal. Curb your dog, curb your pet. What I want to say right now is what curb your dog says, what curb your pet is your pet doesn't piss or shit on the curb. And God forbid I watch you walk away from a pile of shit in the curb, I will fight you. And I won't fight you. I will sucker punch you. I will kick you in the back of the knees, and I'm gonna take you down, and I'm gonna hurt your animal. All right? Because I run on the sidewalks and I step in shit, and that's not cool. I don't like it. All right. On to the next subject.
And we're the
Well, you-
DiGiulio Group.
Yeah.
No, the curb your animal. Everybody thinks means
You
your
sound more
animal's
like
gotta
curb
be
your enthusiasm than curb
outside
your
the
dog
building,
right
on the curb, on the sidewalk.
Right, maybe
pissing
that's
and
the
shitting.
confusion.
It's because it's a bad slogan. Just like good cause eviction and tenant protection. We already know.
There's nothing good in good cause.
Right.
We
Yeah,
already
I
know
would
Tenant
agree on
Protection Act fucks the tenants.
Yeah.
Because that's what I do every day. Oh,
Absolutely.
my credit's not great. My credit's not great. I need some help. I've been turned down from some apartments. Well, the Tenant Protection Act means that you can't cut a deal.
That's
so
right.
the Tenant Protection Act means the tenant is kind of fucked.
And I can't help you out. I can't give you the benefit of the doubt. If you give me a little extra security, I'll take a chance on you.
Well, with
Have a
Tenant
nice
Protection
day.
Act coupled with good cause.
Yeah.
And the good cause means you can't evict anybody. It
What
means
is good cause?
universal rent control.
It is the
what
wolf
good cause
in
is.
sheep's clothing. It's universal rent control for New York State.
Can we
And
say
let
that one
me-
more time,
Yes,
more clearly?
it is universal rent control for New York State disguised as good cause eviction to protect the tenants.
Universal rent control. It sounds great. It sounds great. But what are the implications of this shit where you can't evict anybody no matter what? Everybody deserves an apartment. Everybody
Right.
needs an apartment.
Well, you can evict on certain things if you have a good cause. So, non-payment is good cause, but then you flip back to it takes you 4 months because of the HSTPA for
Well,
non-payment.
the Tenant
so
Protection
you're
Act.
screwed.
The Tenant Protection
Yep.
Act makes an eviction take forever and a fucking
But
day.
you also add, now you have to have a judge tell you if he agrees or not with your good cause to get someone out if it's not on the list of 5 things. And what's that going to cost you, Justin? Attorney fees, time in court, time wasted.
Wait, what do you mean? Evicting somebody costs money?
If you want to evict, yeah.
Plus
And
you're a
now you have
murder
to ask
attorney.
You
permission.
gotta pay her to go to court.
Well,
I
if
thought-
you're an LLC, you're not allowed by law to represent yourself. I have to pay an attorney. I have no choice because the law says you want to form an LLC to have a little bit of protection. So if you get sued, they can't take all your personal stuff. Oh, you can't go to court without an attorney. Have a nice day. Yeah. And you know what else the good cause eviction bill does? You can only raise the rent of your resident 3% annually. 3%. Let's see. Do you know that my costs go up between insurance, water and sewer, taxes?
How much of taxes and water and sewer go up
5
annually?
to 7%. Easy. 5 to 7%.
Pretty regularly, right?
Absolutely. Annually. And do you know the cost
This
of
is
sheetrock
silly,
has
though.
doubled?
How does sheetrock go up?
Well, they can
What
raise
is
their
sheetrock
prices.
made out of? I'm just curious. What is sheetrock made out of?
Sure, but if it gets wet, it falls down. I can tell you that.
True, I know. I see that all the time. But
Pretty-
so we don't
I-
know. Can
Was
somebody,
this pre-rehearsed? I don't know.
Raj,
This
can
was so
somebody
good
Google
dynamic
what is
wise.
sheetrock made out of? I'm just curious what compounds go inside of sheetrock.
Don't eat it.
Because the price is going up. Why is the price going up? Who
It's-
knows?
it's-
Because
But-
they can.
country.
But
Because they're not regulated by the government. So everybody
clearly.
else can raise their prices, but we can't. So
But
I'm
something's
just wondering, here's
affected.
what I want to know. How does that work? I mean, let's face it, 2 + 2 = 4. If you only can raise your rent by 3%, but your cost goes up by 7%, who makes up the difference? And that's your only income stream. So
Nobody
maybe
makes up the difference.
I have to go get another job to pay the building bills because
Well, you should get another job full time
No.
and just neglect your buildings.
What's going to happen though? So give you a real time example.
I
I have
don't
a
get
client
it.
in Buffalo. It's 5,000 units. He just got a quote for 3 elevators that need to be upgraded to maintain code.
Okay.
And it's $245,000. And he's saying if
What's up,
I
baby?
Walk.
don't
walk.
put that into increased rents, I'm not rich where I just can take $245,000 and pay it out of cash.
Dude.
And so he can never recoup that under a good cause eviction model, which doesn't allow him to.
First of all, he's not. If the market is $2,000 for a 1-bedroom, okay, where is this?
Buffalo.
Okay, so
And
the
it
market
is. It is about
is
that.
It really?
Yeah.
Okay, so downtown Buffalo, $2,000 for
This is
1 bed,
Rosanna.
No, oh, not 1 bed.
2 bed,
Probably 2 bedrooms.
2 bed. So the market rate is $2,000 for a 2 bed. And the owner has to do work. He's not going to raise you to $2,500. He's not going to raise you to $2,200. He's not going to raise you to $2,050.
No.
He's not going to raise you
But what I think needs to be
because
said is,
you're going to move, and then he's going to deal with the vacancy.
You're right.
but
You're right.
most landlords didn't before this raise rents at 3 and 4 and 5% annually, at least
Yeah.
upstate. They didn't
didn't.
do it. They didn't want to, and maybe they increased it $25
Well,
or $50.
Landlords don't enjoy raising
Right.
rent.
No.
It's
But
not,
now-
it's not a pastime like tennis.
Right. This system will make it so landlords every single year raise it to the maximum
Well,
level.
the system, yeah,
Period.
they're just mad because you're
You
so
have to.
far behind.
You've got to.
that you have to raise the rent.
Right.
And I'm guilty. I have a tenant who's leaving after 30 years. I've raised their rent 3 times. 3 times.
Insane.
It is. But you know what? They were great tenants.
Moving wide.
Well, they rented a 5-bedroom, 2-bathroom from me. They raised 5 kids. The kids are on college. They don't need a huge apartment anymore.
They're not moving because you're raising the rent.
Absolutely not. They don't want to
my
move.
point.
They called me crying. They're like, we don't need a big apartment anymore. And they're sad. But right. I want them to stay. They want to stay.
Mm-hmm.
But it just doesn't work for their lifestyle right now. But no, I've got great tenants. But if I don't raise the rent, I also have great maintenance people who work their butt off. They stick their hands in toilets. They deal with. I've gotten guys that have been bit by
You ever
dogs.
stuck your hand in a toilet?
They have to.
Have
and
you ever stuck your hand in a dirty toilet? I
know
have.
you
with
have.
or without
I
gloves?
like that she wiped her hand as she
with
thought about
with
that.
or without gloves?
No, fuck you. Yes or no?
Oh, Not
No?
even my own stuff.
No? All
No.
right.
But you got a tenant that clogs the toilet. They keep using it. It's at the top. And my guys go in there like, debit's at the top. I'm like, you gotta do what you gotta do.
Those aren't dish
I've
scrubs.
had-
That's a whole sleeve. That's like
I've
inseminating
had
a
2 of
cow.
them run
Like
out.
inseminating type sleeve.
I've had 2 of them run out actually vomiting. I'm like,
No shit.
sorry guys, why
This
don't
is real shit
but
though.
why don't these guys deserve a raise? Why don't these guys deserve a raise? But I
They
can't raise the
do.
rents to give them a raise, to pay my bills. I know we're loud.
No, we are loud. Because
we're passionate about this.
It's I joke with the word passion. Passion is I promise you, passion is going to become the new entrepreneur in like 2022.
You think?
I'm gonna just make that passion
we have to-
LLP.
Do you
my
have
law
stock
firm.
in that? Can we?
I don't, but I might trademark some shit. I don't know.
Do it.
But how do I do what I do with all these laws pushing down my breathing hole to here, so I can only do
Dude,
a
you're
little bit of
fucked.
what I'm
You're-
good at.
you're
What do you
fucked.
do? You get out because you're fucked.
Well, I had
But
no
you're
choice.
who does that hurt? The tenants
Right,
that
and,
you
and why did I get into this?
build.
Why did I leave
Right.
and take the leap of faith? Because I love people.
Debbie
I
told me
love what I
something
do.
probably 15, maybe 20 years ago. Like, Debbie and I are family.
Yes.
But at one point in the summertime when I was in high school or early college,
While we're
I-
jogging and he's running backward, mocking me because I can't run as fast
Nice
as he can
6-mile
running
run,
backward.
6-mile run. It was an easy light run.
This is how he
I
is.
know,
But-
he's like, what?
I needed income, and I offered to, I said what I was doing. My wrestling coach at the time on property. I'd go in when people moved out, probably because they were evicted most of the time.
Yeah.
And they left these apartments in the most shape I've ever seen. I've never seen people live like that day to day. Rarely see that shit in Manhattan. But people live like that, and they got to get evicted.
So sad.
And we would go and we would clear out the apartments, and I did that for my high school wrestling coach. And then there was a summer he didn't need me, and I went to Debbie and her husband at the time, and I said, my cousin, and I said, this is what I like doing. They paid me hourly. We went in. We cleared out the apartments. I totally lost my train of thought on this.
You said something I told you about.
Oh!
The fuck?
So no, this is it.
We
This is it.
communicate well.
No, I want you to pay attention on this camera. And
Could
this
I
camera right
just
here.
interrupt?
No,
he's gonna lose his
Adam, one
spot.
second. Adam, one second.
Bring it back, Adam.
Adam, 1 second. Debbie said to me, one thing that really is important to me is I changed the toilet seats. And at the time, maybe you don't remember this. For me, it was big. For
Wind
me,
up.
For me,
No one heard
listen
that
to me.
word.
Listen to me. For me, it was the fact that you have the empathy, right, and the caring, and the perspective of the tenant, because I'm not affluent. I didn't grow up by any means in affluence, but when you move into an apartment and you have to sit in somebody else's toilet seat where they shat, and your landlord has the wherewithal to, you walk into that apartment and you gotta peel that blue paper off the new thing. That's cool, man. Like you feel like it's now your home.
Yes.
It's your home. And Debbie told me, yeah, I replaced the toilets because I just think that's gross. And that was like her thing. Like,
yeah,
I just
but
think that's gross.
so is
But-
the granite
but-
countertops
no,
she gives someone who
but
is
she's not
never
Brett,
gonna get that by themselves.
But
Do you replace
She
the ice
gives
trays too?
them-
Maybe I'll move in on.
she gives them hope.
But there's
Is that your thing, ice
hold
trays?
up.
Yeah,
Guys,
100%.
on that note also, when you move into an apartment, you got a refrigerator. The refrigerator was occupied by the last tenant, and you move in, and there's ice trays in the refrigerator.
This is
Let
my
me ask
thing,
this,
too.
because I want some fucking comments on this, 100%, like for fucking real. You move into an apartment, there's a refrigerator. Refrigerator is not new, and there's ice containers in the refrigerator. Do you use those ice containers? I don't. First thing I do, open that shit, throw them away. I've lived in a lot of apartments in New York City, a lot of very clean.
They
I
leave
live in a
ice for
luxury
you?
building right now. I moved into that apartment, 4 ice trays. I took those motherfuckers and threw them in the garbage.
Yeah, no, that's
'Cause
gross.
I just fucking, I could have put them in a dishwasher, washed them. But I'm fucking weird, and I respect people that
Did you
replace toilet
replace
seats.
Yeah,
toilet
you can't.
seat?
You just can't sit on.
Yeah,
someone
I
else's
replaced my
seat.
toilet
Yeah.
seat.
That's wrong.
I replaced my toilet seat.
I
But
replaced
you know
my
why?
toilet. I
Because
demanded that with my landlord.
I put my tenants first.
No way.
And that's what all these new laws are forgetting is that there are great landlords and there are brokers, great brokers like you. We care about the people. We want to give them good housing. How can we do that?
Well, hello. For the minute we started this campaign, so Under One Roof created something in last
What's under
March.
one roof?
Yeah, tell us.
Oh,
We haven't heard
Under
about
one
Under
roof
One
represents who?
Under One Roof represents landlords, tenants, and industry partners. From the minute we started, I insisted, right? I was yelling at everybody. Our hashtags were compassion for tenants.
Yes, you
We represent the tenants who are renting from landlords. It's a symbiotic relationship. A landlord doesn't make money without tenants to live in their premise. And a tenant doesn't get the benefit of good housing unless they have a responsible landlord. So those two go hand in hand, and that's what our coalition stands for. If there's a landlord out there that is not acting appropriately, that is doing things that harm tenants, we will call you out. We
Sure.
have done that.
Sure.
We will
Yeah.
issue a press
Yeah.
release
You're
to
not-
say
you're not-
you're
you're
a
not-
bad actor.
Right,
Get
you
out.
gotta go.
So the
Get
problem
out.
is you're on the side of both sides. What you're fighting are people that are on the side of tenants exclusively.
Correct.
When you have a landlord,
Right.
you're not on the landlord side always. When you have a landlord that's
Absolutely
a
not.
bad egg,
Right.
they're
Anyone
not,
who's a
they're-
bad
you're
actor.
just fuck that. It's
What
not part of the
scared
coalition.
me is we had conversations with a tenant association, and I sat down with them for 45 minutes. And when I started talking about bad actors, which I said existed on both sides, the
Right.
response back was, there are no bad actors on my side. And
That's bullshit.
to me, that was just an irresponsible position to take. So I went further because I probed, because I was sitting there. And I said to her, if, God forbid, your children were subjected to a sex offender who lived in your property and your
On the same
kids-
floor, maybe.
Right. God forbid you went to work and you trusted your children to stay by themselves. And God forbid the worst happened, that your children had an incident that forever would change their lives. What do you do about the person in that house? How do you remove them? How do you get your children to feel safe or other families to feel safe? And you know what her answer to me was? You cannot take that house away from that sex offender. The minute you take the house away, you decay that person. And to me,
But they just decayed that
Right.
family.
Exactly. So to me, I said to her, I found it to be very irresponsible for someone representing themselves as a tenant association person, leader, that one person's overall welfare could be more important than the public at large or the tenants that you represent. Because what about every other family who has
Right.
kids in the premise?
And has rights.
And how, right.
And should
How
have
could
protection.
one tenant be more important than the mass?
Here's the
There's
bottom
got to
line.
be bad actors on both sides, and we've got to have a remedy that doesn't take 90 days to remove that
Well,
person.
here's the thing. There are
agree.
remedies. Code enforcement, the law, there already are laws and things in place. If they were followed and adhered to, bad actors would be held responsible. But what instead of looking at actually what the problem is, and there's a problem on both sides and holding certain people accountable, they're trying to do a blanket statement that's hurting everybody. I tell you, I've been in this business for 30 years. I have never evicted someone because I raised the rent on them. Every person I evicted was for non-payment of rent, and they chose not to pay the rent. I have people right now that owe me 2 and 3 months worth of rent. They lost their job. They have cancer. I work with them. I'm not in court with
you
them.
totally work with them. But
I
the
do.
laws don't allow.
I
The
do.
new laws are not going to allow
I
you
can't
to
take that
fucking work
chance
with
anymore.
people.
Because
And
you'll
you
be out
can't
of
ta-
business.
And you can't take the chance.
I
With the
can't.
not prepaid rent, the no extra security, you can't take a chance with somebody
Yeah.
that's not going to.
Yeah.
The fact that you can't do a background check on somebody, oh, they've been
Right.
evicted before. But so okay, so I want 3 months from you because you've been evicted before. I know eviction process is 45 days.
Yeah.
Now, that would be called the
But-
good clause eviction.
Right,
Well,
but
the
now,
good cause
now
eviction-
they're talking about criminal backgrounds. No more ability.
Right.
That's one of the proposed bills, is to add criminal background as a protected class. So you would no longer be able to vet.
don't know who your
is someone a
neighbor is.
criminal?
You don't know
How
who your
are we
neighbor is.
And that's
protecting
not
our
fair.
children?
How
And
can
that's
we
not
as
fair to you.
agents? How can
Right.
we as agents deliver good tenants to a landlord without knowing who the fuck those people are?
It's just gone too far.
And not even, how do we deliver that person to the landlord? How do we deliver that person to the neighboring apartments?
Well, listen to this.
Can
Albany
I-
has a law in the books that says if you have enough nuisance calls to your property because you're an irresponsible landlord, they have a right to take your
But,
building.
okay.
How do I now prevent that when I don't know you're a nuisance
But
problem?
okay, so are you
Wait, can I
opposed
just,
to licensing?
just to make everyone else at home feel a little bit better for 1 second. All right, my major in school is political science. I've worked with politicians. I've worked with Congress. I've worked with the state
So
Senate.
fix this.
He's
Let me-
volunteering
let
to
me-
come to Albany with us.
Absolutely.
has.
You're
He
done.
should.
You're in.
He should.
You're
Right?
in.
I know a lot of
That's my
state
background.
senators up in Albany. I know the assemblymen up there. I know quite a
Why don't you
few of the
take him?
Democrats and Republicans up there.
No, he's part of it.
Monday.
You
We're
may not be
expanding.
listening to me
Going
right
Monday.
now, but let me just say something
Next
to you.
Monday?
The way bills and the way bills get passed is that 9 times
And
out
the
of 10,
19th.
legislation gets passed and it takes 3 steps forward, and every time it gets fought, it takes 2 steps back. Let's take something a bit broader for 1 second with me, all right? Just stick with me on this. Look at the Affordable Health Care Act, okay? That has taken leaps forward in the way we deal with healthcare in this system since 2010, right?
Right.
But it's taken multiple steps back over the past decade since its passing. All right, there's been a couple things that have actually been pretty good that have stuck there, like pre-existing conditions. Listen, my mom's brother was part of that, especially when he had a liver transplant and such, and I get that.
Dude,
I
you know we
get
had
all
a
of it.
client today who had brain cancer.
Yes. So my point being
Yeah.
is that I get it, but You have to have some hope in the way the system has always worked since the beginning of time, that when we pass legislation, we try to take leaps and bounds, and we always take 2 steps back and only 1 step forward. And I think what you both are doing is a great cause, and keep up the fight. I'm happy to help in any way I can.
You volunteered
All right.
yourself.
You're in.
You're
Apparently
coming
I
to
have.
Albany.
Keep drinking scotch. I maybe
You're
have an opening by
talking
the end
to
of the
2
day.
lobbyists.
But all my point that I'm trying to make is that it's the way the system works, and I think that senators and assemblymen and the governor are not inept to understanding that there's a
Right.
complete other side to this.
Right. Well, that's
And
what
they're
they're
passing-
admitting that. They're
It's a
admitting
number
that.
of people
They're-
behind it.
Just
is
let
the
me finish.
issue.
They're passing what's popular, not what's smart. And they'll finally realize that
popular.
certain things may be popular to a certain segment of their demographic vote,
Not
because
the
that's what it's
majority,
about when it
the
comes to
loudest.
politicians. They only care about their base, and they care about what they're voting about, not what they're voting for.
Let's wrap.
Happy
Let's wrap.
birthday,
Let's do a
Jamie.
little
Hey.
cheers.
Jamie,
Cheers.
happy birthday.
Thank you.
Cheers. Great discussion, Kate.
I'd say so.
Yeah,
All
that was
right.
like 5 hours.
Goodbye.